Hi, I'm Chuck Gibson. This is Loveland Beacon Talks. Today, our featured guest is Miami Township Administrator Jeff Wright. He'll talk to us about the latest development news in the fast-growing community of Miami Township in Clermont County. In July, the Township, along with developers Baker, Story, McDonald Properties of Nashville, and locally based on-site retail group, announced the development of an Aldi Grocery store on State Route 28 across from Kohl's and adjacent to Christ Hospital Medical Office. Jeff Wright expressed excitement about the new development in the July announcement and is here to talk about that and more developing in Miami Township. Now, it is my pleasure to welcome Jeff Wright as he joins us here on Loveland Beacon Talks. Well, welcome, Jeff Wright. Thank you for joining us today on Loveland Beacon Talks. And folks, for those of you listening, if you're not familiar with the name, and frankly you should be, but it's Jeff Wright, Miami Township Administrator. And today, Jeff, I want to talk to you a little bit about, I know you had some exciting news with Aldi is coming to Miami Township. So tell us a little bit about what's going on there and where that's being developed and what's happening.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chuck. And
Sure.
I appreciate you taking the time to always give good coverage to keep our residents informed what's going on in Miami Township. So thanks for that partnership.
Thank you.
Yeah, Aldi is under construction right now. It's on State Route 28. It's across the street from Kohl's, and that is between Woods Point Drive and Buckwheat Road for our residents that know that area. We've been working with a developer out of Nashville for about 3 years on this site. It was a tricky site to develop because of topography, but we are a strong market, they believe, for a new grocery store. And it's really positive because on Facebook and other social media, our residents have been chattering about this for a long time. They want to see it, and there's a lot of support from the community for it. So we're glad it's finally going to happen.
Well, I was going to ask because, the question about a market for another grocery, because we all know, Kroger's is not far away from there, and personally my favorite. Not that matters, but, I was kind of curious of how does that, as you said, you've been working with them for this development for 3 years. What goes into all of that kind of preparation and putting a deal like that together for the township?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot more behind the scenes before we just see a bulldozer show up on the property. We did work with them to rezone the site. We rezoned the property from residential to a business district, and that made sense because that part of State Route 28 is now a 5-lane state highway. We see businesses across the street where the Kohl's is. Next to the Aldi, there's already a Christ Hospital medical office. So that area was transitioning, and it makes sense for just the frontage property to be commercial. And then we think eventually we'll see some residential or office go to the rear. But we first worked with the property owner to get the appropriate zoning in place, and that went well. Then we worked on a lot of site plan reviews. Our zoning department made sure that the Aldi and their landscaping, their lighting, and everything was going to be up to the standards that Miami Township has in place.
Right.
And I'm happy this is actually going to be a more modern look to the Aldi. So I think it's going to be timeless for the next couple generations. And then we also worked with, I mentioned development team out of Nashville, but they also had some partners here from the Cincinnati region. So it took a lot of private developers to work with us on really understanding how much public infrastructure was going to be needed. So the developer has a very expensive task at hand. They are going to be extending a public roadway that's going to utilize the traffic signal at 28 that Kohl's uses. That traffic signal is going to be modified to be a 4-leg traffic signal. And
you beat me to it. I was
Okay.
going to say, because you touched on the fact that, the transitioning from residential, and I was going to say, and with the 5-lane highways,
Yes.
there's a safety factor there. So you kind of beat me to it, Joe,
Yep.
which is good. So continue on with that thought, with
Yeah.
what's going to happen with that intersection and working with the developer and making that a maybe a more safe intersection. Or
I appreciate you bringing up. That's a big component of this. This is why the township has been very involved since day one. We've been working with a traffic engineering company, as has the developer,
Right.
so that we made sure that their road plans to have a new public roadway that would intersect with 28 at the Kohl's traffic signal would be appropriate to carry the new traffic, and it would also meet ODOT standards because State Route 28 is a state highway, of course. And we're going to go a step further. The developer, at their own expense, is putting in that first section, phase 1 of the public street, and all the utilities, and we'll have brand new water and sewer lines, storm water will be retained. They're going to put that street in to accommodate the Aldi, and a restaurant pad in front of the Aldi, and they'll put it to the back of the Aldi property. Then the township is going to utilize local TIF dollars. That's money that we've received from some adjacent commercial developments around that Aldi site. We're going to then extend the public street to go a little further into the property, and then it's going to take a 90-degree turn, and it's going to connect to Pinto Place. Pinto Place, Roan, Sorrel.
Right.
Those are some adjacent single-family subdivision streets right there.
Right.
So when you were talking about a benefit to the community and the traffic network, we think we're going to have a safer result when Aldi is done, because the Christ Hospital Medical Office and all of our residents that live on Pinto and Roan and Sorrel, they're going to be able to connect to the Aldi public street and then get out to the traffic light at State Route 28. So when they're turning left to go into 28 or turning left from 28 to go into their neighborhood, they no longer will have that unsafe situation. They're now going to be able to utilize that brand new traffic light and get in and out of their neighborhood much more safely. We think that's going to reduce the number of wrecks we see on that stretch of State Route 28.
That's a plus.
That's a plus.
For sure.
Big time.
If you can reduce accidents and just even congestion, because the left turns can all of a sudden back things up.
Yeah, you're correct. That backs everybody up in that queue.
I want to give you a chance, because I know you mentioned I guess it's Baker Story McDonald Properties was the Nashville developer. I want to give you a chance to give those guys a shout out.
Yeah, they've been good partners of ours.
And then likewise, obviously, for the development specifically of Aldi's, is it appears like, is that the on-site retail group?
Yeah, I mentioned the Cincinnati fellas, on-site retail group. I believe their offices are located in Blue Ash. Andy Feinblatt and some of the other partners are locally here in Cincinnati. So it's nice that while we worked with a team of well-versed folks when it comes to development out of Nashville, we had some local guys that were boots on the ground, and they were part of all the coordination that took also. And it's been a really positive experience working with on-site from here and then the group of fellas from Nashville.
Are you guys, is Miami Township, all of you, Jeff, and everybody else in the township.
You're a resident, so you're part of us guys.
Are all of us familiar? I mean, is on-site somebody you guys have worked with in the past? Or
Yeah, they've existed for a couple of decades now, and they've done a lot of work throughout Cincinnati, northern Kentucky. When I worked at Westchester Township early in my career, on-site was doing a lot of development out there. So there's somebody that we were familiar with, and we had a good relationship. We knew that they have a pride in all the projects that they do. And I think our residents are going to see that pride come out when this project's done.
Well, the dozers are on site. The dirt's been moving. What can you tell us about like an expected opening for the Aldi's or site completion, whatever the right terminology is for that?
I spoke with their general contractor who's doing all the infrastructure work today, and he said if it stays dry, they're going to stay on schedule. Aldi would like to have a store opening sometime in the summer of 2024, and I do think that's practical because all of the elements that go into site preparation and their funding that they do for their store is all in place. So there's nothing that's going to hold this up. Weather is always the unpredictable factor, but it cooperates.
Well, we're nearing the end of this summer. Although, with school starting right now, everybody thinks summer's over. I remind them, summer's not over till September 21st. So
that's right.
We have a whole month ahead of us.
Yeah.
And plus, because today's, only, what is today, the 15th
of August.
As you and I sit here and talk. But that aside, again, the dirt's flying, things are moving, you can see, progress there.
Yeah.
But, and we're going to transition coming out of that, across the street. Something's happening over there too, Jeff.
Yeah, you're right, Chuck. It's almost like there's kind of a dumbbell, two sides of a development on State Route 28, almost across the street from one another. So we were just talking about the traffic signal that Kohl's utilizes, immediately east of Coles, between Coles and Buckwheat Road, there are about 9 or 10 acres that were purchased about a year ago from the Tire Discounter Company, and they are becoming site developers. Rather than them renting their stores, they now like to own their own real estate. So you'd see a lot of dirt moving right there, and it's probably not a coincidence. I think that the retail community has seen so many households get built in Miami Township, and we have a high amount of disposable income in our community. Now that we have all the rooftops, the retailers are coming in to help service those homes. So Tire Discounters is going to build a very large new store on that site.
I'm going to say, so they're going to grow.
Much bigger than their
size,
current.
Yeah.
Exactly right. It's going to be a larger footprint. And then they also are going to be building separate building. Will have a carriage house car wash. That's a little bit newer name. We do have a small version of that in Miami Township right now on Branch Hill Guinea Pike. But this is going to be a larger footprint. And they're going to still operate both locations.
You know, I was thinking about that when you said, so that one's not going to move. Carriage House down Branch Hill Guinea will remain, and this will be a new separate.
Yeah, good news is there's enough market here. We're at 44,000 residents now. A couple of the communities further out from us, they also are seeing a growth. So I think for many years, Miami Township's still going to be kind of the commercial district for some of our neighboring jurisdictions. So it's not just the new households we have, it's all the new development occurring outside of Miami Township.
Well, on the fun side of that, if they keep moving dirt all over the place, we're all going to have to get our cars washed.
Yeah, I think you're onto their business model, Chuck.
They're like, hey, look at all this dirt flying.
Yeah.
But, well, you know, really appreciate that. One other thing I want to touch on, going back to the Aldi development, you said, and I don't know if people were listening, and it's, you know, maybe sneaked by a few people as they were listening, you touched on a restaurant pad as part of that. So there's not a specific restaurant that's going to go there yet?
No, they don't have a deal inked yet.
I see.
So don't know specifically. But yes, there's enough room for a very small restaurant, perhaps a coffee shop or a coffee vendor. But definitely with the high traffic count we see on State Route 28 and the fact that it'll be at a traffic signal, I'm not concerned that pad will be empty for very long.
Right.
Yeah, so it'll be new.
Just toss that one in there thinking about, because heard you mention the restaurant pad, and I knew in the original press release talked about the outlot being available, so didn't know how far along that had progressed. But
yeah, I know the fellows at On-Site have talked with several restaurant and coffee places that we don't have yet in Miami Township. And so they already, before construction began, they had some interest. So I'm pretty confident that in a few months they'll link the right deal and they'll get somebody in there that maybe isn't as plentiful yet in our immediate vicinity. And it'll be nice to give another small job creator and then another choice that residents can have to spend some money, get a service, and they don't have to leave the community.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of the future. That, you know, and it's the immediate future, and it's a real future, because this isn't just speculation. These are things that are happening, developments that are going on. But you've had a really good recent past, too, and I wanted to give you a chance to share with, you know, the listeners for Loveland Beacon Talks a little bit about what's, you know, recently happened in Miami Township, places that maybe they haven't visited yet.
That's good. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. A couple small examples that have recently opened is that on Business 28, in a small strip center where Papa John's is located, there's a new Mexican restaurant called Taco Veloz. I believe we're the second location in Greater Cincinnati of them. Sit-down restaurant. They recently obtained their liquor license, and so they call it kind of street tacos, but it's a broader menu than that. And I've been trying to get in there when they're not so busy, but firsthand, some friends of mine have eaten in there, and they say good things. So that's the new Mexican restaurant on Business 28. And then we have a new Brazilian bakery on Ward's Corner Road. They opened about 2 months ago, I believe. So it's a couple from Brazil. And while they call it a bakery, I noticed they have a lot of savory items as well. So you can also go in there and get lunch or dinner, and it's more than just the sweets. And they have some really interesting social media sites. Everything they do seems really handcrafted and unique, and so it's nice that we also have, you know, that's a little bit different ethnic flair that we don't yet have in Miami Township. So I think they filled a niche in So they're at Wards Corner Road, very close to I-275, and that's a growing area too. We still see some subdivisions going in that area. Some apartments are under construction down the road.
Yeah.
And I think they're capturing a lot of the traffic that comes off of Wards Corner.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not all food and groceries or dirty cars to be washed, tires, whatever. Also, serving the people's needs and the healthcare needs. And you and I have talked a little bit in the past. So what's happening? The dermatology group is what I was thinking of.
That's right. That's very noticeable now. Optima is a dermatology practice that operates in a few states. I believe we're going to be the first Optima dermatology group in Greater Cincinnati. And the site that they have nearly completed it's a great high-impact corner. It's at Business 28 and Bypass 28.
Definitely a high-impact corner.
High-impact corner. A lot happens there. Yeah. So that is it's one of the busiest intersections in all of Clermont County. So that's one block off of I-275. I-275 at State Route 28. They are on the northeast quadrant of the Business 28 Bypass 28 intersection. And there's probably 20,000 cars a day go by there. Optimus saw that we were underserved with dermatology in this area, and they were impressed. They paid a lot for that land. They're building a beautiful building. They're putting on the brick right now. I don't have a firm date. They should be opening sometime this winter. I know they already have a doctor in place, and they're in their hiring mode, so that's a great sign. They're going to be open in a few months.
Yes.
And you and I have talked previously about we have market leakage when it comes to medical services, general practitioners, and a lot of the specialty groups. So I hope that Optima Dermatology going there encourages other types of practices to come here and invest in Miami Township. I just said we have 44,000 residents, and yet a lot as residents, other than we have a lot of great dentists in this area. For a lot of our medical needs, we're having to go out to other communities, 15, 20-minute drive away for all those. And I believe that market leakage of medical practices, hopefully we're going to turn the tide on that pretty soon. Yeah. I think Optima is going to prove to be very successful, and they're going to have a lot of clients from day one. So it's going to be a nice-looking, attractive, modern building. And that's the fourth and final corner of that intersection to be done. We've already had the development around the Lowe's occur.
Right.
Chick-fil-A came in 5 years ago on the corner.
Chick-fil-A, I'm glad you mentioned that. It amazes me. My thought when they were putting that in is that's a tough location. They are busy all the time.
Yep. As busy as that intersection is, customers are not deterred from going there.
That's amazing. It's
amazing. They're doing really well. Mike Howe is the owner-operator of that, and they've done a couple of improvements in their 5 years already, and he has a great staff and constantly busy. I agree. So ODOT is finishing off some road improvements right there. So across from Optima Dermatology is where there's a new slip right turn lane onto the interstate.
Right.
And you noticed that about a month ago, the I Am Miami Township signs went up on the decorative overpass. So that's our welcome mat. That's a very busy intersection for us. So I think it's starting to have a little bit better curb appeal now.
Yeah, it's starting to take shape.
It is.
We'll see. Hopefully, I think that right turn lane to get onto the
that'll keep people out of that busy bypass 28 and Business 28 intersection.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Mm-hmm. Well, so I'm going to say recapping here before we end it. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to share this. But so we've got Aldi, basically spring summer 2024.
That's right.
I don't think I asked you, shame on me, but the tire discounters, I mean, they're in a location already, but their site that they're developing, do you have an idea on their date?
They're saying last quarter of this year or first quarter of 2024 is likely.
Very good.
Yeah.
And of course, with all of that comes the traffic improvement right there in that area by the Christ Hospital place there and Coles and so.
Yeah, we should see the road improvements done by next summer as well. We're going to do that. Our part will be done in 2 phases. Sometime this winter, we're going to have a contractor make that traffic light at Coles and 28 into the 4-leg signal I mentioned. So hopefully that will be done probably as early as January. And then it's likely next summer we'll be done with our street extension so that we can get all of the folks to that traffic light.
Pinto and Roan. And
Yeah, that's correct,
Right.
the Pinto and Roan neighborhood. So
Yeah.
that's likely to be a year or less than a year.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, again, Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time.
It's my pleasure, Chuck.
Appreciate it. Well,
Yeah,
hopefully
thanks for all you do.
Well, we'll talk again soon.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Again, that was Jeff Wright, Miami Township Administrator in Clermont County, talking about the commercial developments in the growing community. Loveland Beacon Talks is a presentation of Loveland Beacon Digital Online News. I'm Chuck Gibson. Thanks for listening today.